Have you ever wondered why, after 50, instead of feeling lighter, some people feel heavier inside? Why, when life should finally slow down, the mind becomes restless, chasing what is already gone or what may never come? There is a mistake, subtle, silent, and devastating. A spiritual mistake that steals peace when you need it the most. And if you stay with me through this journey, you will see the world with new eyes. You may even rediscover the peace you thought was lost forever. Have you ever felt the strange pull of the past, as if the weight of memories could bend your shoulders forward and chain your gaze to what can no longer be changed? That question followed me as I entered a desert that seemed to have no end. The air was sharp, dry, and merciless. Each breath scraped my throat as though I were inhaling dust made of old mistakes. The ground crunched beneath my steps, not like ordinary sand, but like shards of forgotten time. With every shift of my feet, I heard whispers. They weren't the whispers of wind. They were the murmurs of regrets, missed chances, unspoken words, paths I never took. At 50, 60, 70, the mind often wanders backward. We remember not just what we did, but what we failed to do. I could almost hear those silent accusations following me across the dunes. Why didn't you take that risk? Why did you let that love slip away? Why didn't you forgive sooner? They circled me like vultures in the distance, patient, waiting. The desert was endless. The sun glared down with a light so white it erased shadows, as if even they had no courage to stand beside me. Sweat stung my eyes, my clothes clung to my skin, and the silence pressed against my ears like a physical weight. No birds, no water, no escape. Only the echo of my own steps and the burden of everything I carried within. Each regret felt like a stone in a backpack strapped to my soul, heavy, invisible to others, yet undeniable to me. With every step the load grew, though nothing touched my shoulders but heat and air. I realized how long I had walked through life with that invisible burden, how it had shaped my posture, my voice, my choices, and how often I had mistaken this weight for identity. But then a thought pierced through the haze. What if I was wrong? What if the true mistake was not the past itself, but the way I had allowed it to rule over me? I had been living as though the past had more authority than the present moment, as though old failures and wounds could still decide the path of my steps today. I stopped walking. The horizon shimmered in the heat like a veil of light, and I noticed something. The desert was not truly endless. Every step I had taken, no matter how small, had shifted the horizon. What appeared unchanging was already different, because I dared to move forward. I knelt down, letting the sand run between my fingers. It was warm, almost burning, but inside the grains I saw tiny sparks catching the sunlight. They glittered like fragments of gold, treasures hidden inside what I once thought was barren emptiness. I understood then. Regret was not a curse meant to bury me. It was a guidepost, a teacher. Each regret I carried was pointing me toward something unfinished, something alive within me still waiting to be honored. The friendship I never mended could remind me to love deeper now. The dream I abandoned could inspire me to dream again today. The forgiveness I withheld could teach me mercy before my time is gone. The desert was not punishing me. It was reflecting me. It was the inner landscape of my own heart, stripped of distractions, forcing me to confront the truth. I am not imprisoned by the past. I am invited by it. The wind rose then, brushing against my face with a sudden coolness, almost tender, almost like a hand guiding me. And for the first time I did not feel lost. I felt at the beginning, because regret, when seen with new eyes, is not the end of the road. It is the map that points to where awakening begins. And the horizon only expands for those willing to take the next step. The desert wind was still clinging to my skin when I saw it. A mountain, high, silent, shadowed. Its face was carved with countless figures, etched in stone as if eternity itself had sculpted them there. Faces of friends, faces of strangers, some smiling, some frowning, some crowned with the subtle glow of lives that seemed better, richer, healthier, more accomplished. The air thickened, my footsteps slowed. Comparison, the thief of joy. The faces seemed alive, whispering silently from the rock walls. Look at me, I did more, I became more. Why haven't you? Their eyes followed me as I climbed, each gaze heavy as chains. At 50, 60, 70, comparison sharpens like a blade. The body changes, the career quiets, the applause fades. Children grow and move away, friends take different paths. And the mountain stands tall before us, filled with reminders that someone else is stronger, richer, younger, or more loved. I felt its weight pressing on me. My breath quickened, my chest tightened. Each step forward carried the ache of invisibility, like I was climbing not toward my summit, but toward theirs. The mistake was clear, but painful to face, believing that another's path was ever meant to mirror mine, believing that peace could be found by measuring myself against shadows carved on stone. I stopped, pressed my hand against the mountain wall, cold, rough, yet strangely reflective, for in the grooves of the rock I saw not their lives, but fragments of my own reflection, my fears, my hidden longings, the parts of me I had disowned because they did not look like them. And in that silence a thought pierced me like lightning. What if the mountain was never blocking me at all? What if it was only showing me what I refused to see in myself? The wind shifted again. This time it carried not accusation, but invitation, a whisper softer than breath. Your summit is not theirs. Climb not to their peak, but to your own. I looked upward. The mountain no longer seemed endless. It was steep, yes, but it was mine. My climb, my summit, my soul's unique horizon. A surge of clarity rushed through me. The chains loosened. The weight of faces carved in stone began to crumble. I realized joy had not been stolen. It had only been misplaced, buried under illusions of comparison. I took another step, and the mountain shifted beneath my feet, not to block me, but to guide me upward. And what if the summit I had been climbing was never theirs to begin with, but mine, waiting all along? The path curved into shadow, leading somewhere unseen, and with it, a question burned brighter than ever. If regret points forward and comparison points inward, what lies beyond when the path leads upward into the unknown? The mountain faded behind me, and silence took its place. A silence so complete that it felt alive, humming in the air like the pause between heartbeats. I stepped forward and found myself before a temple, ancient, unmoving, its stone walls breathing with shadows. No sound of wind, no echo of birds, only stillness. Inside there was nothing but one object, a mirror. It stood tall in the center of the temple, framed in dark wood, polished so perfectly that it seemed not to reflect light, but to drink it. My footsteps echoed as I approached. The air smelled of dust and incense, as if prayers once spoken here still lingered, trapped in the stone. I stood before the mirror and froze. The face looking back at me was not mine. Not really. It was a collage, a shifting tapestry of masks. Parent, worker, provider, friend, labels I had carried for decades, etched into my reflection as if they were more real than my own skin. But where was I? The spiritual mistake revealed itself here with cutting clarity. I had confused myself with the roles I played. My reflection was a masquerade, a play of identities I had worn to be accepted, to be needed, to be loved. And now, as age stripped away some of those roles, retirement, children grown, relationships changed, I felt the hollowness beneath. Had I forgotten who I was before the masks? I leaned closer. The mirror seemed colder than glass should be, almost alive, breathing against my fingertips. My chest tightened. What if there was nothing behind those roles? What if the real me had been buried too deep to find? The silence thickened. My heartbeat became a drum in my ears. The reflection flickered, now a parent, now a worker, now a stranger I barely recognized. The glass trembled, and in a single breath of courage I reached out and touched it. It shattered. The sound was deafening, like thunder inside a cave. Shards fell in slow motion, scattering across the stone floor like fragments of forgotten lives. And behind the broken mirror, there was light. Not the harsh light of the sun, not the dim glow of candles, but something beyond both. Pure, infinite, unconditioned, a light that seemed to know me, not the masks, not the roles, but me. I felt warmth on my skin, like stepping into the embrace of something eternal. The air shifted, carrying the scent of rain after drought, fresh and alive. My lungs filled differently, as if I had been holding my breath for 50 years and only now could exhale. The truth unfolded with simplicity. I am not the roles. I am the one who has always been watching them. The witness. The presence behind every story, every comparison, every regret. Tears blurred my vision, not of sorrow, but of release. The weight of decades fell away with the shards on the floor. For the first time, I was not parent, worker, provider, friend. I was simply here, alive, breathing, being. And a thought rose from within like a whisper carried by the light. If the mask falls, maybe that is the first time you can finally breathe as yourself. The temple shook gently, as if the walls themselves exhaled in agreement. The silence was no longer heavy, it was sacred, alive with possibility. But just as I let my shoulders rest in this new awareness, I felt something stir in the air. A pull, a call, a sense that this awakening was not the end but only the threshold. Because beyond the temple, something awaited. Something greater than regret, greater than comparison, greater even than identity. A final crossing. At last I reached the river, wide, unending, alive. The current surged with power, carrying branches, leaves, entire trunks away as if they weighed nothing. I stood at its edge, heart pounding. What if I let go and lose everything? What if the river devours me the way time devours years? I hesitated, but then the whisper returned, softer than the wind, yet stronger than my doubts. The river does not steal. The river renews. And suddenly I understood. Peace is stolen only when we resist the flow. The mistake, so common, so costly after 50, is holding too tightly to what was always meant to pass. The great release. I bent down, hands trembling, and gathered the fragments of my journey. The regrets I had carried through the desert, the comparisons I had climbed upon the mountain, the masks I had seen shatter in the mirror. One by one I placed them into the water. The river accepted them without judgment. No resistance, no blame, only release. The surface rippled, then closed as if they had never existed. For a moment I felt stripped bare, empty. But in that emptiness something awakened, the return to the source. The river whispered again, when you release, you are not losing, you are returning to the source. And I saw it, clear as light, breaking through storm clouds. I was not the roles I had played, not the failures I had feared, not the stories I had compared my life against. I was the witness, the eternal awareness, the one who had been here before all roles and who would remain after. The river was not outside of me. The river was me. Its flow ran through my breath. Its current pulsed within my heart. Its silence echoed in the space behind every thought. The peace that remains. I closed my eyes, and in the stillness, I discovered what had been hidden all along. Peace does not arrive from the world outside. Peace returns when we stop clutching, stop fighting, stop fearing. At 50, 60, 70, we think peace is something to be found, like a prize at the end of the journey. But the truth is more radical, more liberating. Peace is what remains when you let go. The river widened into endless light. Time dissolved, space dissolved. And for the first time I could breathe, not as a role, not as a story, but as myself. So remember this. The greatest spiritual mistake after 50 is forgetting that peace is not something you chase. Peace is the silence that remains when you release what was never yours to hold. And maybe, just maybe, the journey was never about finding peace at all. It was about remembering that peace had never left you. Peace is not discovered. Peace is remembered.